Hi, my name's Damon Clark and welcome to PI Hacks. So in this session, we're going to dig into the Predictive Index Design module. So before we begin, just to recap on what design is. So design is predictive index team product, they call it. So we know we can understand a person's individual behavioral work style and look at their strengths and caution areas, but we can also do that with a team and look at a team's collective strengths and caution areas. We can also with design align that team to their strategy and look for misalignment. And that is absolutely awesome. It's like having a crystal ball and seeing into the future. So it's a fantastic product. That's how they sell it, but it can also be used for a whole range of other uses and applications. For example, we can use it for strategic hiring. So it's great to behaviorally assess a job and map a candidate to a job. That's what we do in PI Hire. But we can also understand the team you're hiring into and what they're trying to achieve to help you make a better hire. Now, that is an absolute game changer when it comes to hiring. It's also an awesome tool to do an exploratory session with a hiring manager and then present back that data. So design for hiring is fantastic. We can also use it for onboarding. So instead of trying to figure out your team over 6 months, we can do it within 30 minutes. And we can do it very high level in design. You can also use Inspire for that. However, I feel during that onboarding period, the cognitive overload is crazy. So you may be best off sticking into design. Also, team-to-team cohesion is another use, conflict resolution, leadership, executive coaching. It goes on and on and on. So there's lots of applications for design, but we're going to kind of go through its kind of standard features on this session. Okay, here we go. So you can see the dashboard here. We've got actually modules at the very top here: hire, inspire, design, diagnose, and perform. And we also have kind of bigger cards here. Remember, we've got the standard features. We've got group analytics, which I'll go into a video another time. Group analytics is very similar to design. You can see a group's behavior as a group and look at those ABCDs, but I'll cover that another time. We've got that search bar, which is going to be your best friend. And we've got the admin side here, so we can look at all those user permissions, etc. But we're going to stick into design. So we're going to go to design now. This is the homepage for design, and you've got your teams here. There's a quick shortcut. If you press these 3 buttons, we can share that team or delete that team, but we're going to go into this team here. And what you'll notice initially is not a lot has changed. The user interface has changed. And it does take a little bit of getting used to if you're used to the older version of design, but you very quickly adjust. So just a little bit of a recap here. Remember, we've got those 4 quadrants. We've got teamwork and employee experience. If we press that button, we'll look at what that type of work involves. Remember, this is for work you do. This is for strategy or for goals your organization or department or project team are doing. We've got teamwork and employee experience. We have innovation, agility, process and precision, and results and discipline here. So there are 4 quadrants, and we as people are going to fit into one of those quadrants. So just before we get there, remember we've got this button down here. This is your PI expert mode. This is going to go through what those quadrants are. So we're thinking about those primary factors, so dominance, extroversion, patience, and formality. So it's going to go through where those highest behaviors are. It's a really useful function here. And then we'll get back to the purple lines, but just quickly, the purple lines here are your strategy or your objective. So I'm going to show you how we put those in. So often when I'm introducing this product, I leave the people out of it so I can just focus on the work. And I often introduce this as the world of work. Work falls into one or a combination of these 4 strategies. Then sometimes for fun, I ask people to predict where a team is. And this can sometimes I put the leadership team in of an organization if I'm not working with the leadership team, because normally everyone knows the leaders and I get them to guess where they are. What I normally do is the person's not allowed to tell everyone where they think they are. Everyone has to guess for them. And that's a bit more fun. So we can hide everyone and then we can quickly show them as we kind of go through. And let's go, I'm going to go into me now. The closer you are to the edge, the more predictable for behavior. I'm a 6 Sigma wide maverick. We can click through and look at my full profile. So I'm a maverick. I'm a very wide maverick, so I'm quite close to the edge. And for work, mavericks normally fit into is innovation and agility. There's some profiles that kind of fit on the borderline or quite situational in the middle, but mavericks are right definitely in that innovation and agility quadrant. So if we click on me, we're going to have some strengths. Remember, we want to use those strengths in your day-to-day as much as possible. outside your day-to-day and progress towards them in the future. That's going to help with retention and engagement. I used to always focus on caution areas, but then I realized it's so important that we use our strengths. That's really going to get engaged teams by using your strengths. We got preferred work styles and we got caution areas, and we can work on reducing the impact of those caution areas. So that's one of my main workshops I do with my clients. I stay in design. If I haven't got a lot of time, I say in design. If I've got more time, I'll go into Inspire and use the personal development chart, because the strengths are broken down into A, B, C, Ds, the primary factors on that. So you can get a bit more detailed. But I do have, when I got half a day, if I've only got 2 hours, I'll stay in design and I'll just focus on these strengths and caution areas and split people up and just have a really experiential session. There you go. So we can show all of these now. Let's click onto them. And we can also change colors, just like in the old version. Let's put me as purple, and let's put this some good example. Here we go. So we can change colors. So you can use that for hiring. Maybe you're presenting this data back to a hiring manager and you want to highlight the potential candidates, or maybe you're in different departments. I don't know, but there's a color option there, which is great. Also to note here, a few things I normally talk about is, if you're in the quadrant for work, if the work you're doing, you're in that quadrant, just like sitting, we can do that all day. If we're maybe doing the work in this top left quadrant, so we're looking at me now, and all the horizontal, the quadrants, bottom right, results and discipline. So me as a maverick, and the work I'm doing is teamwork and employee experience, or results and discipline. That's like jogging. I can do it, but I'm going to get tired. That's not my natural preference. And after a while, it may get a bit draining. Now, if the work I'm doing is in process and precision, as a maverick, that's like sprinting. I'm going to get tired really quickly. I am not hardwired to operate in this bucket down here. That's like putting a right-hand person in a left-hand person's job. So a great tool to understand. Often you may have an employee who's struggling, and sometimes you can really easily visually see why. So a great application for it. Also worth knowing here is the potential friction. So it's often the opposites where friction comes from. So the diagonals, I say. So here, me and Jamal, they are in process precision. I'm in innovation and agility. Think about that. Let's look at those of high A, high B. So I like to think things through. I like to talk things out. I'm comfortable with ambiguity. I like to make independent decisions, where Jamal, high C, high D. So going to be much more collaborative, want to reflect on ideas, going to want details. So that's where potential friction comes from, particularly in newer employees or more junior employees. I find with more senior employees, sometimes there's a bit more awareness there. So this is where friction comes from. And in fact, it's potentially a super team, a Batman and Robin, a Captain Kirk and Spock situation here. So I do a lot of work in understanding where that friction comes from and turning that friction into a potential strength, because I need Jamal in my life to help pump on those brakes and I'm moving too quickly, and to cross those T's and dot those I's. Now, that is what I wanted to show you on here. So up in the top left, we've got this team activity score, which is a new feature. And the more work and the more you're in design and using the tools, it's going to give you a higher score. And what PI are trying to do here is, it's like a gym membership. PI design is amazing, but you go turn up and use it. So that's a really good tool to kind of make sure your teams are engaged. So that is the team part. And this is going to go in. So we've just looked at individual strengths and caution areas, and our reference profiles are here. Jamal is a artisan and I'm a maverick. And remember, we can always get deeper in Inspire here, but this is quite high level. The next stage is we can look at our team as a collective. So step 2, this is an exploring team. So it's going to introduce what an exploring team is. How many teams are exploring teams? 13% of teams are exploring teams, apparently. I find a lot of leadership teams are exploring teams, and they come with their own unique set of challenges as a leadership team. And they can have strengths, and they can have caution areas. So just like that individual exercise I discussed earlier, where we can look at strengths, individual strengths, how we can use them more, and reduce the impact of caution areas, we can also look at your team strengths and your team caution areas. Now, then we can break out in pairs and look for examples, and on those examples kind of brainstorm how we can reduce them from happening. So it's a great tool for team cohesion, team building, great exercises, lots of things we can do here. We have actually an official PI workshop called High Performing Teams, and we run that for many clients. It's a great session. I like it because it's quite high level and experiential, so quite a fun session to introduce a leadership offsite, quite light and lots of interaction. So there is our team type. And a little bit of a trick, a little, what do we call this, of Easter egg here. And not many people in PI even knew about this. If you look at this logo, you'll notice the darker part is in the top right corner of the logo. And that's where most of the team members are. So it's a quick way to figuring out where your team members are there. So the design team did that. So a little bit of an Easter egg there. Here we go. So if we go down to the action planner, this is a newish feature. The last PI had a little bit of action planning in, but this is much more comprehensive. So if we open it up, there's so much we can do in here. So if I go to add action, it's going to kind of suggest some actions here, but there's loads of like categories here. So let's look at team culture, for example. It's going to give recommendations based on your team type on how to take action and improve your high performing team. And there's a whole range in here, all actions here, there's loads. And we can also add our own actions here. So a great feature. You'll notice that PI are trying to bake more stuff in line now. And again, we're trying to get people into the software using it because it's like at gym membership. The more we use it, the better we get. We can also, on those action plans, I've got a couple here. Let me see if I can put one in. Add action. Let's go here. Bang. We can also assign that. We'll assign it to me, and we can put a due date on that. Here we go. And then we can check that off when it's done. So a lot of functionality in here. This is very self-driving. You don't need to hire an expensive consultant like me to come in and do these workshops for you. That does me out of a job. I understand that. But PI, I like it. I like it because in the old days with consultants, you can only do so much with consultants, whereas this kind of empowers every team to really take handle and action on improving their performance. So I love it. Here we go. So I put myself in here. I got a new action. I can assign that to myself. I can put a due date and I can rate this action. So a lot more functionality in here. What I would say, I've just been talking about the advantage of this solution is it empowers teams to take more responsibility in their development and avoid those costly consultant costs. There is an advantage of bringing a consultant in. So when I do my team sessions, I can't get fired. So I can ask these difficult questions, and I'm a trained facilitator. So there's definitely some advantages of having a consultant come in and work with your teams. But where I see PI really working is you can still do that on high level teams, but traditionally that's where it stayed. You couldn't afford to roll out training to the whole organization, but with the software you can. So with maybe a consultant working with a leadership team and an internal resource working the rest of the organization, you just think about the stickiness. Using all that same language, it is absolute game changing, and that's why I love PI and work with PI a lot. So that's the action planner. And if we move onwards, we're going to go into the strategic objectives. I'm going to show you how this works. Now, you can work with a team. If I've got a project team or a departmental team, I can say, listen, let's look at these objectives and which ones resonate with you. Do you need to guide others to improve collaboration? Is that what you're doing? Explore risky activities that could be rewarding. So you can go through this. Now, normally you'll get 5 or 8 or 9, but if you're doing 9 things, you're going to get lucky to do 2. So what I normally say with goals and objectives, if you go for 3, you get 3. If you go for 5, you get 2. So what I normally do then is really challenge my teams to reduce them down to 3 to 4 actions as minimal as possible. However, normally goals are built like that. Normally you start with goals. And if I'm working with the leadership team, let's switch on to leadership team here, they really need to know their goals ahead of time. If they don't know that, they've got a bigger challenge from seeing how aligned their team is with goals and creating developmental plans. Yeah, all leadership teams should have a robust way of developing, implementing, and tracking strategy, and that has to come first. Our job as talent optimizers are to support the talent to execute that strategy. So that strategy should be solid. If it's not, we do strategy, please contact us. We do a number of frameworks, and we have a number of very specialist consultants who work on that. That's a different subject. Bring us in, because that's super important to get that done. Now, if that is done, your leadership team should know it, and there should be a document. So working on this, you should be able to fill this out ahead of time. So with my clients, when I'm doing these leadership workshops, I'm usually say, hey, can you talk me through your strategy? Do you have documents? What are your main design goals. And then I check these boxes. So maybe this is a leadership team who are now gone through a startup stage and are trying to build more infrastructure and scalable processes, trying to drive a few more results. And maybe they've gone through a lot of change and have to think about the team a bit more. So let's do this. Okay, let's check off this. So as you can see, we have an exploring team pursuing a stabilizing strategy. Now there's some misalignments there. Earlier I said about that crystal ball. Let's think about it. Most goals are not achieved due to people. So we've got the ability to understand that team's hardwiring and where they're going to struggle. So this is going to align the team with strategy, go through the strengths and the potential caution areas. And again, just like the previous exercises, we can really explore very particular as caution areas here. Where are we going to miss these goals? And then what can we do to prevent them happening? Is it a process? Is it something to be mindful of? Is it, we call this RBS, can we put on someone in the room? Is it some bench strength further down in the organization? Or is it someone outside the building? Room, building, streets. Do we need to find someone out on the street? So it could be a person, it could be a process. An example, actually similar example to this, we had a team that kept on committing to too many initiatives and never get done. So part of the action planning was to have a project charter where everything went into a parking lot, was prioritized and signed off by a team on whether that's feasible. And the team wasn't very good at asking the teams below, so they pulled in people on the teams below to kind of do a due diligence on whether that was feasible. So that was an outcome and an action on going through this process. I hope that was a useful example. So just a few little bits to go through. So remember, edit team members, we can remove people and add people here. And up here, we can print a summary, we can share the team, we can delete the team, and we can download. Here we go. And you'll notice this is quite similar to the old one, and we can print out into a PDF and share it. Sometimes I share this with hiring managers, or I'll print out when I'm doing a team session. Okay, I think that is it. So that is design. I do expect design to be evolving a lot in the next few years, because the whole reason PI moved to its new infrastructure is so it could do more updates and improvements. So I expect to see a lot more features be implemented into this. As I said, it's so much more from a team alignment to strategy solution. We can use it for so many things. Please do reach out. And if you do have any other suggestions on how you use it or how you potentially use it, please leave them in the comments below. Do not forget to like and subscribe. It enables us to do more of these videos where we try and help everyone with PI and share PI's message of better work, better world. Thank you very much. Take care.